Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you've spent any time at all following the deep, chaotic lore of the King of Iron Fist tournaments, you already know the deal. The Mishima bloodline is totally defined by this vicious cycle of hatred and patricide. But today, we're taking on the role of a biographer to map out the psychological journey of its absolute most tragic figure, Jin Kazama. This is the story of a peace-loving martial artist who transformed into a warmongering antagonist, only to somehow fight his way back to humanity. We are going to explore the really subtle, fascinating emotional shifts that drove his most controversial character decisions. "I'll make the devil's blood my own if it's the last thing I do." That declaration tells you literally everything you need to know about the immense burden resting on his shoulders. But, it raises a really profound question for us. How exactly does a hero, someone who is seemingly destined to save the world, become the very monster he swore to destroy? Well, to understand the darkness, we first have to look at the light. Act 1. The Kazama Light. Innocence and Betrayal.
Okay, let's dive into this. Our biography begins in the peaceful, remote mountains of Yakushima. This is exactly where Jin's mother, Jin Kazama, laid his psychological foundation. She taught him self-defense, sure, but way more importantly, she taught him self-control. On one side of his psyche, you have her philosophy, this beautiful doctrine of fostering life, maintaining harmony, and using martial arts strictly for protection. But then, on the absolute opposite side, you have the Mishima curse inherited from his father, Kazuya. It's a dark, twisted ideology where power is everything, fueled entirely by hatred and ruthless ambition. And these two opposing psychological forces are exactly what will eventually tear Jin apart.
Let's walk through this brutal timeline to see exactly when the fracture occurs. At just 15 years old, Jin loses his mother to the monstrous ogre. Following her last wishes, he seeks out his grandfather, Heihachi Mishima, for training. Fast forward to age 19, Jin actually succeeds. He defeats ogre and avenges his mother. But literally seconds later, the ultimate betrayal happens. Heihachi's Tekken force guns Jin down, and Heihachi himself delivers a point-blank shot to his own grandson's head. It's this exact trauma, this absolute shattering of his innocence, that triggers his generational curse. The devil Jin awakens, reviving him in a monstrous, winged form. Which brings us to Act 2, the Mishima Curse, Rebellion and Descent into Darkness. Heihachi's betrayal changes absolutely everything. The trauma manifests as this violent, complete rejection of his own lineage. Jin no longer wants to be a Mishima. Look at the extreme lengths he goes to here. Jin literally drops off the grid, relocating to a small dojo in Brisbane, Australia. He totally dedicates himself to unlearning the Mishima-style fighting techniques his grandfather taught him, mastering traditional Kyokushin karate in secret instead. This somatic shift in his fighting style is basically a desperate physical metaphor. He is trying to sweat out his own cursed bloodline, to physically purge the Mishima from his body. And we see the culmination of this intense internal battle during the infamous Hanmaru incident in Tekken 4. Jin defeats both his father and his grandfather. He is inches away from murdering Heihachi and just succumbing to the devil Jin entirely. But a vision of his mother stops him dead in his tracks. He drops Heihachi and utters these words, "Thank my mother, Jin Kazama." Her lingering psychological influence is the only thing stopping a total moral collapse into murder. And this brilliantly illustrates his internal shift. If you track his wardrobe and fighting style across the games, a really clear narrative of internal struggle emerges. In Tekken 3, he's wearing the Mishima gear. In Tekken 4, he rejects it completely, hiding under a hooded jacket and wearing gloves with the Kazama crest. But by Tekken 6, he's right back to wearing Mishima-style gauntlets, and he's heavily relying on his devil powers. His visual shift back towards the Mishima aesthetic perfectly mirrors his internal decay. Which leads us to his absolute descent into darkness. Jin usurps control of the Mishima Zaibutsu and basically becomes the very thing he hated. He declares the megacorporation an independent superpower and uses the elite Tekken force to destabilize nations all across the globe. He literally incites a world war. Now, why would he do that? Well, through a highly twisted logic corrupted by the devil Jin, he believes that filling the world with negative energy will awaken Azazel, the original progenitor of the devil Jin. Jin plans to kill Azazel to destroy the curse once and for all. It's a terrifying paradox, isn't it? He is trying to save the world by actively destroying it. So I have to ask you, was Jin's global war a masterstroke of ultimate sacrifice, since he fully intended to die taking Azazel down? Or was it the absolute victory of the devil Jin, tricking a fallen hero into causing unprecedented global suffering? Either way you look at it, his benevolent intentions are completely eclipsed by the horrific global cost.
Act 3, the Awakening, Acceptance and Atoning.
This final act is a deeply painful road to psychological recovery. Jin's huge sacrifice against Azazel didn't actually rid him of the curse. Instead, it leaves him completely fractured. In Tekken 8, Jin wakes up from a coma severely weakened and, shockingly, stripped of his ability to access his devil powers. He is plagued by immense, crushing guilt over the war he started. And for the very first time, he can't just rely on brute, demonic strength. He is forced to rely on others, even former enemies like his uncle Lars Alexanderson. Losing his powers is a real game changer. It forces Jin to finally confront the reality of his actions without the armor of his devil form to hide behind. To heal, he must go back to where it all started. Guided by his allies, Jin returns to the point of origin, that peaceful sanctuary in Yakushima. Here, he enters a deep, meditative state and confronts his literal inner demons on a plane of his own subconscious. He fights a mirror image of himself, Devil Jin. But rather than trying to destroy it, as he has his entire life, he does something completely different. He stops rejecting his past. He finally acknowledges that the devil form is an innate part of his history, and that it, too, was born from a twisted desire to protect him. In this breakthrough moment of acceptance, Jin remembers his mother's teachings about true power. It's not about anger, and it's certainly not about destruction. It's about fostering life and cleansing evil, driven by the unyielding desire to protect those who are precious to you. By fully accepting himself and aligning his desires with his mother's philosophy, Jin unlocks a stunning new angelic form. He gains the power to save not just himself, but to actively purify his father, Kazuya, as well. The epic clash purifies both of them, destroying the devil gene completely. But the fight isn't over yet, as human men, father and son, continue to brawl it out. So, the crucial point is exactly how Jin fights in this final battle. He doesn't just use one style anymore. He seamlessly combines the Mishima karate he once passionately rejected, the traditional Kyokushin he learned in exile, and his mother's Kazama-style martial arts. Synthesizing all of his past traumas, all of his conflicting teachings into one cohesive fighting style signifies his total, ultimate self-acceptance.
And he wins. But rather than throwing his father off a cliff, as is the classic Mishima family tradition, Jin simply walks away, leaving the unconscious Kazuya alive. He ends the conflict entirely on his own terms. It leaves us with one final, profound question to consider. By walking away and actively choosing mercy over murder, did Jin Kazama finally, truly break the generational cycle of the Mishima curse? It's a massive testament to how far he's come, from a shattered boy to a man who finally understands true power.